Hey Zach, you ready to do this review? Zach? Zach? Are you in the bathroom?
No.
You know what day it is?
No.
It's the day we finally review Series 13.
No.
Can you say anything other than no?
No. Yes. I mean no.
Dude, look, it's been so long since Series 13 came out. You want to review the RTD series, right?
Right.
Well, we can't review that series if we don't review this one first. I'll give you a minute.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Review in Space. We are finally going to be covering all of Doctor Who Series 13. We're going to be talking about Revolution of the Daleks. We're going to talk about Doctor Who Flux with... what's it called? Halloween Apocalypse, War of Sontarans, Once Upon a Time, Village of the Angels?
Yep.
Survivors of the Flux, and then the Vanquishers, as well as Eve of the Daleks and Legend of the Sea Devils, with a brief afterthought of Power of the Daleks. We're going to... Power of the Doctor is what I meant to say. We're going to briefly touch on that because I did do a separate review on that whole episode before, so we're not going to talk too much on that one because this whole video will be long enough as it is. But hello and welcome to a very, very, hopefully not too long Doctor Who review. I hope you're sat comfortably, have your snacks. We're going to be talking about all things of the Jodie's final run of episodes. Like I say, from Revolution of the Daleks, because I didn't touch upon it in my Series 12 review. So we're talking about it now, along with Flux and everything that comes afterwards. Let's do this.
Alright.
Yes. So, Revolution of the Daleks. What did you think of that one?
What I thought of it was, I liked it more actually than Resolution.
Mm-hmm.
But
Really?
yeah, a little bit more, because it wasn't just the one Dalek, you know, jumping around between different bodies. But on the same side, it's kind of had that whole reaction of, you know, new Dalek variants. It's kind of like Victory of the Daleks, you know, when these new ones, they're made to be drones and all that kind of stuff, and then it tends to be a slight civil war because they think they're pure when the others don't deem them to be pure. There's a bit more of an argument about that. And I feel like, for me, if it wasn't for the Daleks, this episode really would be just forgettable.
Well, in my opinion, I prefer Resolution. Because I like it when an episode does something new with the Dalek as a concept, and the idea of like a human being a Dalek puppet, like with the actual like Dalek mutant being in control. I really enjoyed that. Whereas Revolution of the Daleks just feels like rehash. First of all, the design, like the guard Daleks that you have, the black ones
With
that
the
you
red
have in
eyes,
this,
yeah.
they lasted like a minute before they got killed off in the same episode, which, if you're going to create a new Dalek design, you better fucking stick to it, otherwise no one's going to care about it, because, yeah. But also the fact there are two Dalek factions, that being those guard Daleks and then the bronze Daleks that come back. It's kind of a rehash of Remembrance of the Daleks, and been there, done that, you know, you can't replace that one, so why even try?
One compelling piece, though, was that they brought back a character from Jodie's first series,
right?
The Donald Trump wannabe.
Yeah, I don't know his actual name, but I just know him as the Donald Trump clone, because that's basically who he is. He's American, he's a bit overweight, and he has a lot of controversial opinions. And he was running for president.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm not... I mean, the thing is, it was interesting to have him back. Don't really like him. I mean, he's an alright character, but he's the sort of like love to hate him kind of character.
Yeah, you just wait. You're only happy to see him just so you can see him go. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. But the introduction of Captain Jack in this episode was well done, I suppose, with like
him finally meeting the Doctor in her female form for the first time.
Yeah, and him breaking her out of prison was a cool little touch in there, I suppose. The payoff of her like being stuck in prison in the first place was pretty cool. To end off Timeless
Yeah.
children, that cliffhanger. Because we spent a bit of time in prison, didn't we, at the start of this one, with her just kind of...
Pacing around, you got the silence in one, you got
a few
Angel.
cameos, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite neat. So I suppose that was well done. But one thing that... Okay, so there was a few things that I don't really think were really good. My main complaint, actually, is how they defeated the Daleks. And
By
that's...
sucking them into the TARDIS.
Well, into a fake TARDIS, and then the Doctor casually just sacrificing that TARDIS.
Yeah.
Despite it being well known in lore, and the Doctor being a actual just spoken word piece about this, is that a TARDIS is a living thing,
Yeah.
a precious living thing that are quite rare to come by, and yet she just casually uses one, just sacrifices it almost to kill off a few Daleks. I'm like,
it's like,
and she doesn't even bat an eye. I mean, if
No.
it was different, it was like, I'm so sorry I had to do that. If she was like remorseful for it, I'd be like, okay, fine. But no, the fact that like she just does that on a whim is just not a very doctory thing to do, in my opinion.
The 13th Doctor's always had a very wishy-washy sense of morals. You know, she approves guns. She's very temperamental. when it
Sometimes
comes
she
to,
does, but when she doesn't, that's when it matters. But not when
she doesn't. She wasn't quick to defend any person wronged by a particular system, like in Kablam. You know, the Doctor would be very much against the idea of tyrannical or over-obsessive
corrupt,
systems.
systems. Yeah,
But instead, in this
she
one,
sides
she's,
with it.
Yeah,
she
it's
sides
like,
with the corporation.
Why is the Doctor doing that? It's like we haven't seen a Doctor so morally flipped since the 6th Doctor, when he starts his incarnation off by strangling his companion.
Yeah,
it's like this isn't anything like the familiar trend of the Doctor that we've seen post Time War.
No,
and it's nice to see a change in something, but this isn't a change. This is just a punch in the nuts. That's what that is.
Yeah, it just doesn't really fit. Also, like this, I would have liked it. Well, I think Graham and Ryan's exit, afterthought in this episode, in my opinion. They just kind of sod off at the end, and then we never see them again. Well, we see Graham in like a few episodes' time, but you know, it's still. It feels like there's no lead up to it. It just feels like, all right, we're off. See ya.
Yeah.
Like they'd never been like besties or whatever we do with each other. They're just gone.
It didn't deserve to be in this episode. That's what it felt like.
No.
It's just.
Also, I would have liked it if they'd like killed off one of the two, and then the other one leaves because.
In that case,
it is
then,
grandson and grandfather. One of them dies. The other goes, "Doctor, I can't travel with you anymore. This person's died now. This is serious." It would have been cool if the exit happened that way, but
I feel like in that case then it would have been most poignant if Graham was the one to die.
I know, yeah. But people like Bradley Walsh, they probably would have had a riot if they did that. But something like that I would have liked. It would have made the exit a bit more believable for me, but
then it still seemed weird that, you know, Yaz would stick around after supposedly her didn't Yaz date the other guy?
Ryan, I think they were just school friends.
Oh.
I'm not sure, they could have done. I don't think there was anything there. If it was, then Chibnall probably didn't expand on it and just left it as one scene and then called it a day.
It just seems weird that, you know, after all the time they spent travelling as a group, that she wouldn't leave with them. It's a bit... Because it's not like Rose, when you see that romance with the Doctor happening behind Mickey's back, and then even with Mickey there, you know, she's still more keen to stick around with the Doctor. Whereas... I know later on there's that kind of will there, won't there thing with Yaz and the Doctor, but that was never addressed beforehand.
No, it kind of came in at the end, didn't it?
Yeah. And so it makes her sticking around with the Doctor feel not unwarranted, just odd, jarring.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. But yeah, Revolution, it's alright. People like it. People like to think that it's the best of Jodie's Dalek stories. I think it's the worst. I think it's the worst of her Dalek stories. I didn't like that one very much. Probably my least favourite Dalek story in a few years, to be honest. I wasn't really a fan. I like the concept behind it being like, some human corporation, they found this scrapped Dalek, and so they studied it and then tried to create their own. A cool concept, just poor execution, I think. And also it's too overstuffed because you also have Captain Jack and then the two companions leaving, and it's just a mess. It's just too much stuff happening all at once for anyone to keep up with, unfortunately.
It's a bit of a blown opportunity, really.
It is. For me, I'd give this episode 5 out of 10. I'll be generous. 5 out of 10.
I was going to give it a 5 as well. Really.
Yeah, it's there. It does the job. It's alright.
It's not horrible, but it's no way.
I expected better after Resolution because I really enjoyed Resolution, but this one I did not. But now we move into Flux. My notes are all over the place with Flux. I don't know what order I wrote this in, but we're just gonna go with in some sort of order. So. The Halloween Apocalypse.
Introduction of Dan.
It is. It's not a bad introduction. It's about as much development as we see from him in the entirety of his run, but I didn't mind it, actually. I didn't mind Dan in this episode. I think that also Halloween Apocalypse, it isn't in a vacuum. The episode isn't really much, but when you look at it as like a series premiere of like a serialized drama, and not serialized drama, like an episodic piece where all the episodes are tightly linked. It's a perfect opener because it has a taster of what is to come from everything. You see a taster of, I've forgotten her name, but she gets attacked by a weeping angel at the start of it. You also see the Sontarans briefly. You also see Swarm. There's all this stuff in this episode. It's so packed, but somehow it's well paced. Also a reintroduction to Yaz and the Doctor and their new dynamic as being like a duo. So it juggles a lot, but in my opinion it doesn't really fall on its face very, very hard. I think it's actually a solid opening for me.
The one part of that episode which it's the only thing I can solidly remember, it's the ending of that episode when they're watching the Flux through the TARDIS doors.
I love that cliffhanger. It felt to me like a perfect classic series cliffhanger in my opinion, where it is just like, oh, the end of the universe, I never knew what it would look like or whatever she says, and then suddenly it's coming into the TARDIS and it was like, what the fuck? And it's one of those like whimsical cliffhangers that I mean Flux is like littered with amazing cliffhangers, but this one's solid. It's like the way to do a good one is like, it's kind of like you know that they're not gonna die here, but you're like really invested into how they're going to get out of this one. That's what it's more about, and I really enjoy it because it's such what a nice, charming little cliffhanger for Doctor Who.
It struck me as the kind of cliffhanger you would have in the penultimate series episode. Like if it was a 2-parter at the end.
That's a good point.
Then because obviously the Flux, it's the title, it's what the series is kind of from the title. It's what the series is based around, that event, and so. After all that stuff that you're going through, and then the Doctor finally gets to the Flux, and then it's approaching like that. That's the kind of cliffhanger you'd expect in the
penultimate one. I like that it's the first one because it kind of sets the stakes, like you say. It feels like a penultimate episode, like sort of like cliffhanger, and yet they're pitting it at the start to show you just how serious the situation is. I kind of enjoy them doing that. I didn't think about it that way.
I think, and you might disagree with me on this one, because I know we did a talk about another cliffhanger in this series when we did the cliffhangers episode. I think it's personally my favourite in the series.
What
as a cliffhanger?
Yeah, really, is it?
Yeah, I think
the Halloween Apocalypse.
Because for me, it's just more memorable.
Really?
Yeah. If you cut out the dialogue because it's a bit on the nose.
Well, yeah, but at the end of the day, it goes back to the sort of ham-fisted dialogue from the classic series. You've got to give it some sort of level, like, oh, go on, it's whatever. It's Doctor Who. It's meant to be falling apart.
As a first episode for this series, I don't think they did too bad.
No, especially with like the introduction of Carvanista, the talking walking dog.
Yeah,
I really enjoy that character. Also, Swarm, the best new villain introduced since House from Doctor's Wife.
Really, you think House was a?
Oh, I think he was excellent, but I think that Swarm is also like one of the next greats. You know what I mean? I think that if it wasn't for the Vanquishers, fucking kill me. But I'm serious. Swarm, even now, even after Vanquishers, Swarm and Azure, S tier villains for Doctor Who. They have to come back.
What about the Passenger? What did you think of that?
It was more a plot device than a character, but it does the job for like the sort of like. Because I remember the weeks leading up to the reveal of what Passenger was. I know we're jumping ahead, but how it ends up being like, oh, it's a little lifeboat where like people's souls are taken or something. And I love that people were theorising what the passenger was ahead of time. That's what Flux did in general, really, it being a 6-parter.
Yeah.
It made the fan base just way more engaged with the show, and like seeing all the mysteries, especially watching Halloween Apocalypse and being like, what the fuck is going on, with the Sontarans showing up and the Weeping Angels showing up, and then people online, and also Swarm showing up, and then it was the fact that like Swarm shows up as like an old weird other faced guy, and then he regenerates, and it's like, what? Well, Swarm, it's also regenerating? What that? What's going on there? Someone who's regenerating that's not, you know,
Yeah.
just yeah, and it was just a big what the fuck thing, because online you're just theorising everything that's going on. What do the Weeping Angels have to do with this? What are the Sontarans doing? What is the fucking Flux? What the Flux is the Flux? It's a big mystery, and I really enjoyed how the Halloween Apocalypse kind of started that. Yeah, I think it worked, and Dan's introduction wasn't the worst in the world either, which is, you know, good, to be honest, on Chibnall standards. Shade thrown, but I thought it was quite good. I enjoyed it, actually. But shall we move on to War of the Sontarans?
Sure.
I love it. One of my favourite Jodie episodes. It might be my single favourite Jodie episode. I think that as a plot on its own, of it just being what's her name? I've forgotten her name, but she's like the celebrity character that shows up. It's been a while. But you know who I mean.
Yeah, I know who.
She's like a war veteran, like hospital lady.
Yeah.
And like the introduction of that, having her in there with the Sontarans showing up as well, I think it's a genius plot for the Sontarans, but it wouldn't have fit a full 45 minutes of the episode, which is why it's perfect in the context of Flux, because the Flux story is going on in the background while the Sontaran story is coming along in the foreground. I just really enjoy how well this is balanced, because like I say, just the Sontaran stuff wouldn't have worked on its own, but the fact that it's in Flux makes this episode literally perfect, because you have that, and you also have Dan on Earth hitting Sontarans with a wok, and then you also have Yaz on this mysterious temple place, and you meet this guy called Vinda that's also there, and there's a mystery as to like who these Mayan weird Atropulse people are on the statues, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? This is some deep cryptic shit, like, and obviously Swarm in the background lurking. It's just a whole lot of just awesomeness in War of Sontarans, and it's kind of the best that Flux gets, in my opinion. But there are one other heater, maybe two other heaters, depending on who you ask. But yeah, I think the War of Sontarans is actually amazing. And also the Sontarans are actually threatening again. That's one thing this episode did fucking amazingly. It's one thing that people don't appreciate now, because now Sontarans are just back to being the menacing potato heads they are. But before, they were nothing more than potato head comic relief because of Strax, and that was it.
I think when you have, Commander Stahl and Commander Scorn from Poison Skies, sometimes
that was okay.
Yeah, Stahl to me seemed like Stahl's on the siren. I mean, if you cut out Scorn for a minute, because he was a bit forgettable, but Stahl, he wasn't necessarily menacing in a frightening way, but he struck you as a proper soldier. He struck you as a general.
Yes.
He had that authority, he had that voice, he had that plan. He was strategic in a stratagem. But I agree with you. Since Strax, you can't really look at a Sontaran.
No. Mary Seacole. That's the name of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
But yeah, the Sontarans in this series, I liked the transition. I liked the design. It was very much reminiscent of the classic series, which is probably what they were going for anyway. Spud on a horse, though. I almost lost the seriousness. Almost, because I understand, mode of transport of the time he was in. Yeah. But it's just one of those things where, yeah, you took a gamble for that, and I guess it's like Marmite, that moment.
Yes,
you either love that, you love seeing that.
I didn't love it, but the fact is the Sontarans are like the most menacing they've been since the classic series here, and that's partially just because of the amazing set design, for one, of just the marshlands and having just littered with bodies. Half of the mud there isn't mud; it's bodies just laying on the ground, just the horror and ruin that the Sontarans have left in their wake. Yeah. Just killing. They're just they are bred for war. They are creatures bred for war,
Back to their sport.
Exactly, and that's what they did. Okay, so this episode literally just understood the Sontarans for once, and they nailed it, in my opinion. Thank you, Chibnall, for doing that. If nothing else, thank you for saving the Sontarans. And the cliffhanger at the end, I also want to point out, amazing. I've said it before.
That's the one where he's about to click it.
He's about to click Yaz out of existence. Yaz is on the podium.
The design of her face of that one, that is a very... It kind of reminded me of Toby Zed in The Impossible Planet.
Yes. It feels like that sort of... it feels like that should not be happening. Yaz, no. And like I say, with like Azure and Swarm just swanning around, clicking people out of existence, you know, the floating like cubes that were like flying around and talking, you must prepare. The fact that like they just click that thing out of existence, it was a living thing. They just do that randomly. It just shows how evil they are, because they're just ready to just fucking murder anyone. They don't give a shit. It's no skin off their back. They'll just do it for fun, which is why you truly believe that Yaz could be fucked here. Yeah. Same with the Doctor, really, and Vinder, even though we don't really know Vinder very, very well. But yeah, amazing. Actually, it's pretty damn good. And there are other bits in there. Like at the start, you have this weird black and white sort of like vision that the Doctor has of like this floating house that looks all weird and morphed. People have theorised, and this obviously alluded to nothing because we never saw like a payoff to it, thanks Chibnall, but alluded to like the House of Lungbarrow, which is a really deep rabbit hole Doctor Who thing, which is like references the Doctor's past back in like the 7th Doctor's sort of like extended media book line. Okay. And the House of Lungbarrow is like where a lot of his secrets are held, and like having that up there, like having that visualised for TV and people kind of theorising that might be what it is, or like some similar version of it. We don't know whether they're going to adapt it one for one or whether it's just a weird Easter egg and nothing more. But that's what people theorise, that's what that was, or that's what that was linking to.
I think when I saw it,
appreciate.
I think when I saw it, the thing that I theorised first was it was the place where the if I have to say that it's canon in the times. But it felt to me like it was the place where the Doctor was experimented on with the regeneration trials.
Potentially, maybe Chibnall was going to, if we got a full 10 episode series 13, if COVID didn't happen, maybe that's what he was leading to. Maybe he was going to try and merge the idea of Lungbarrow with his Timeless Child fan fiction. Who knows? That remains to be seen, thank goodness. But anyway, I feel like the only thing, and I've said this throughout all of Jodie reviews that I've done, she does like to fucking over-explain, doesn't she? Yeah. Every scene that you see her in, it looks cool, it sounds cool, everything looks visually really cool and creepy and awesome. And then she goes and points at this weird sci-fi panel or this floating orb, and then she has to explain... she has to explain the second it was born all the way to the moment of its death, and explain every...
But she says, I don't know if it's just the way that she's saying it or if it's literally just the dialogue that Chibnall wrote.
I think it's the dialogue.
But
I don't think if
literally,
she had a script, she would...
I mean, it's nothing you couldn't see yourself. It's nothing you couldn't figure out yourself. The Doctor talks to everything and everyone like we've not known anything before or after this episode.
Yeah, it just feels like Chibnall kind of had like a sentence description of like, oh, this Sontaran spaceship. All right, now let's write down what I'm thinking this is, and then that is the finished script. That's just the finished line of dialogue that Jodie says now, and nothing more. And that feels a bit lazy. But
spaceship, the Valia.
But yeah, it's a good story though. I really do love War of Sontaran. Like I say, on its own, wouldn't work. Wouldn't really work as a full 45-minute episode, but in a small little pocket of like a wider story, excellent. Absolutely excellent choice to have it here, especially as a second one, because it gives us an idea as to what the sort of like formula of Flux would end up being, where it is literally, heavy plot-centric episode, then side story with Sontarans, but still Flux. Then the one afterwards, and then more of the side story plus Flux. It's just a nice balance there. But yeah, that was War of Sontarans. Now we move on to Once Upon Time, which, my god, is such a big lore dump episode, which had so much more potential than it ended up living up to. It was going to be the big Joe Martin episode that they'd alluded to the year before, but since COVID happened, they couldn't film together, which meant that Joe Martin showed up in snippets rather than it being her whole episode. Yeah. I would have fucking loved it if we had a whole Joe Martin episode as like a flashback, and the fact that Swarm shows up during the Joe Martin stuff just shows how much weight there is to like the Swarm being around, because it shows there's history between them that the Doctor doesn't even know nowadays, which is just so sick. The one thing that Chibnall did do right, if there is anything to defend Timeless Child for, is that it added, it kind of took away the mystery, but it did also add other elements of mystery to that, where it is more like, we've got more secrets to unlock of the Doctor's past, which is a nice little thing. Like, you're always watching out for any Easter eggs about what this could be, what that could be, what's that floating house there, why is Swarm in this flashback of Joe Martin. There's a lot of breadcrumbs in there, so that side of it, I feel like, is well done to a degree, but at the same time, the whole point of Doctor Who is that you're not meant to answer that question of Doctor Who. You're meant to leave it as much of a mystery as you can. You can allude to it, but you've got to walk around on eggshells on that question. You can't just blatantly answer half of it.
The closest they got to it, which was the most comfortable I think anyone's been around that kind of topic, is in Listen, when Clara visits, the Doctor as a...
True, I also think there's some Sylvester McCoy stuff that like leans heavy into that sort of side of him too, which is well
done. Is that extended stuff again?
Well, yes, but also a little bit alluded to during the show, but like in breadcrumbs. So like I say, in previous times they have danced around the question but never answered it, which is how you're meant to really do it if you don't want to break the canon, Chibnall. But I will give Chibnall this, he's bold in terms of canon breaking stuff, but I think he was just a bit reckless in how he did it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this isn't me defending him or the Timeless Child. I wish that thing never happened. But yeah. But if there was ever a way to make it worth introducing as a plot line, this is a good episode to pay that off, because you're looking around at what this could be, what that could be. Yeah. But yeah, Once Upon a Time is an absolute smorgasbord of ideas, but you see basically, you get the reveal that Dan's love interest Di was inside Passenger, which is an interesting reveal, and that's what people were theorising back in episode 1, which is cool that there's like payoff there. And it's like rewarding people that like are really digging deep into like what the answer to this or that question could be. Yeah. But we also see a glimpse of the Weeping Angels, which leads to the next episode. But this one, it's all right. It feels like a lot of unfinished ideas. This one, which is a shame. But there was some good stuff in there. I just would have liked that full Joe Martin episode, because I love Joe Martin. Yeah. Joe Martin's great. And I still love Swarm. Swarm is still great, and this episode kind of shows that he is so great. But anything else to say about it? Not really.
Not really.
No,
I mean, listen, one of the reasons why I'm not saying too much is because half of these episodes, they're more original, but then there are like 1 or 2 or 3 episodes in this where I could sum it up in one sentence how I feel about it. Yeah. It's just... It's forgettable because it's not... It's kind of like what you said with Once Upon a Time, where it's a load of different ideas. Because nothing stands on its own. It's not like War of the Sontarans, where you have the battle with the Sontarans in it, because there's no juicy chunk of little extra bits that you can latch onto. No, it's true. Like why at the end of the Halloween one, the starter with that flux moment on the cliffhanger, that's good because it keeps something consistent for a minute and it's worth memorising. Right. The stuff with Joe Martin's Doctor, the memories, the flashbacks, they're good, but because they're fragmented, it's not one consistent moment, it doesn't sit in my memory as well as it could have done. No, it comes back to me if you bring it up, but it's not something I could remember.
I think that Flux was received better for classic fans than new fans because it is a extended parted episode akin to the classic series. Yeah. Where it is more than fucking 2 parts long, and I think it does need to be experienced in the full 6 parts back to back for it to be fully appreciated. That's if the Vanquishers didn't suck. Because the ending is the most important part of a story, and if you don't pull off the ending of something, then you'll just be left like, why did I bother watching this whole thing in the first place? Chibnall. So that's kind of why I don't revisit Flux as much, and I kind of just cherry pick the better episodes because it gives me the feeling of, oh, this is the good stuff. This is the good stuff in Jodie's era, because there is good stuff in there. I love War of the Sontarans, and I love Village of the Angels, which we're going to talk about. You don't like that one?
It's not that I don't... Well, there are a few things I will cherry pick. Right. Like, as an actor, I know it's a standard thing that child actors tend to suck, but the facial expressions on that little girl, it's like she had one expression the entire time, and it was... Oh, right. It was just that kind of face that just says, Okay, I've just been told to look here. I mean, I don't know if this is her first time, and I don't want to hate on a little kid, but at the same time, if you're going to have a little kid in the room, at least give them something worthwhile and something in their ability.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, because in a show like Doctor Who, where everything counts, especially in a time when the ratings are down, you don't want to have any chinks in your armour.
No.
And if you're opening yourself up to something like this, then it's a big chink in an episode like that.
Yeah, I suppose.
I'll get back to the ending of that one in a minute when we brush over the rest of it. As an Angels episode with the Weeping Angels, because we haven't seen anything this big with them since the time of Angels, Flesh and Stone. And
same with the Sontarans. The Sontarans were in a way worse state before War of the Sontarans, but the Weeping Angels were tired. The last one we had was Angels Take Manhattan, and though that episode is good, it's not for the Angels. It just feels like they are fodder, and it was they're a set piece for Amy and Rory's exit in that episode, and not much more. In Time of Angels, good concept. I feel like they were fodder in part 2 though. In part 1 they were well done because they were still under the illusion that they're not the statues when you realise they are. Cool twist. There's nothing more to them than that, unfortunately. That's the only trick they had up their sleeve writing wise with them.
And it's just
this is just
Flesh and Stone.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, and then Angels Take Manhattan. They just feel like a set piece for Amy and Rory's exit. They don't feel like they have their own sort of like role to play in the story beyond just chasing the Doctor and the companions about. Which isn't what you want for the Angels, considering they're such a unique monster. Like, the fact that you avoid them by staring them in the face, but not in the eyes. And this episode made them scary again. I'm going to say that. This episode is the best Angels episode since Blink. Bold claim. I think so. It's just really, really good. And it feels like a true gothic Doctor Who episode, like akin of like the 4th Doctor's era with Philip Hinchcliffe. It's just really, really good. Creepy Village, best place for the Weeping Angels.
Kind of remind me of the village in Amy's Choice a bit.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? It is actually quite good there, but yeah.
I like the implements of different. You know how you got the video footage again, where the image of an angel, hologram angel, fire
that's
angel.
Really good. Yeah,
I feel like for me it had a good run in the middle when all the angel stuff was starting to kick off.
Yeah.
Where it lost me was just before the Doctor and the scientist guy are running into that cavern.
Yes,
that whole sequence of them in the house, in that basement.
Excellent.
I liked that.
I loved everything in the house. Excellent stuff. The stuff in the tunnel I didn't mind. It felt a tiny bit rushed, and it felt like you didn't know exactly what was going on half the time though. But yeah, it was still good though. I think one thing that I've realised with Jodie in general, she works better without any companions, with just like a few supporting roles and that's it, because she doesn't just fucking expedition dump everything. She just kind of gets on with it. And this is an occasion where she does that because she split up from Yaz and Dan in this one. She's on her own with this old scientist guy, and she's trying to get him to understand that the Weeping Angels are fucking dangerous and they're real and you need to take shit seriously.
I did like that set design actually about the town being split into day and night and one zone and the other into the future.
Yeah.
That as an idea for
excellent
for an episode, that sounds pretty cool. And I like the fact that they're tied because the ones who are from one side will be jumped to the other.
Yes.
That's a good bit of continuity.
It really is. I really enjoy that. It's a great way to use Weeping Angel's ability to zap them back in time and have it work in the plot both ways.
And I like the fact that they brought back that.
Don't know what that was.
No, neither do I. I think I'm going to push the mattress down.
Anyway, yeah, so...
I like the fact that they brought back the ability that they send you back in time, not just a neck snap anymore.
Yes.
Because...
That was another thing, yeah.
Weeping Angels weren't sold in the beginning as mindless murderers.
No, exactly.
Their way of killing you had a purpose for them.
Yeah.
It wasn't just mindless murder.
No, that's right. Yeah, I think as well as that, giving the angels a voice is a better interpretation of them than letting them move, like in Flesh and Stone.
Kind of liked that more than the voice. I didn't like the whispering angel you know, when the Doctor's transported to that beachside and there's the
I
angel behind the
enjoyed
girl.
that. It feels like film art house, that bit. I really dug it, but I didn't enjoy the angels moving. It rubbed me the wrong way, that bit. But the idea of giving the angel a voice through someone else is a really cool way to give them a voice in general and to talk to the Doctor. I just like that more, in my opinion. It just feels more closer to what they would actually do.
Yeah.
But and then also the cliffhanger at the end. You've been recalled. Amazing cliffhanger. It's a shame that the next episode ruins it, but this is still a great cliffhanger and nothing can change that. The fact that she turns to stone is like such a what the fuck moment, just like any other. Amazing cliffhanger. I love it. You don't love it?
No.
No?
No, I'm not. I mean, I would like the idea to believe that I think had that been a companion turning into an angel, that would have been more frightening.
Okay.
But because it's the Doctor, because it's the main character, it's not a cliffhanger for the end of the series. You know that it's going to be undone in the next episode. It's like when they did Infinity War, and it didn't matter who gets snapped at the end because you know that certain characters have got sequels coming up, so you know they're not completely done.
True. That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's like, had that been the end of the series, that would have been better. Had it been a companion before the end of the series, that would have been better.
Yeah.
But again, that moment also rubbed me the wrong way because the Doctor did more of that over-explanation, that tunnel bit where they aren't moving around, but then, it kind of gets undone because, she's been summoned by those lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, it didn't scare me. It didn't bore me. Because we've never seen anybody turn into an angel before, so that idea on its own is
cool.
all right to watch.
It is really cool.
But it didn't scare me thinking that the Doctor had turned into an angel.
No,
because it's something that's never happened before. We know it's not going to be permanent. We wouldn't know if it was permanent if a non-Doctor character had done it.
No.
And so for me, it was just the ending of an episode.
Fair enough. I enjoyed it. I think it was really sick. But one thing I did love about that is when the credits roll. You know how in the credits you have the that's meant to be the heartbeat of a Time Lord. In the end credits of this one, none of that. Which links to her being stone. There's not going to be any heartbeat there.
That is true. I did not notice that.
There you go. That's a fun detail that I wrote in my notes when I first watched it.
The one thing though is that...
Shut up! Please.
God.
Stop dying out there.
I think it's policemen. Sorry about that. But one thing that also spoiled the atmosphere for that is that it had that end credit scene, with those two people trying to find that recording.
Oh yeah.
And
Vinder and not Vinder, Vinder's girlfriend and again someone else.
But it felt so out of place considering we hadn't seen them for about 20 minutes in the episode beforehand, and then suddenly it gets thrown in.
They just show up. Yeah.
It's like I would have preferred it had that been tagged
the
in.
Next one episode,
just after the professor, the scientist guy, got zapped back.
Jericho, his name is.
Jericho.
I think.
Had Jericho been zapped back in time, and then the Doctor realizes the angels aren't moving, then you have that bit with the girlfriend and everything.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to the Doctor.
No,
that for me,
cool.
I think would have worked better.
Yeah. No, that would have been cool. Let's try to rush through Survivors of the Flux now, and then Vanquishers as well. So, admittedly, Survivors of the Flux, it has some good stuff, but also some less good stuff. So the good stuff first. The reintroduction of Unit, and how you see the different time periods of Unit, and you see the Grand Serpent, I think his name is, appear in different time periods and try to mess with the history of Unit. Cool idea. I just love that Unit's back because they just killed it off unceremoniously as an idea and resolution for some reason. So that was a cool rectification, if that's a word. It is now. But then also the globe-trotting nature of Dan, Yaz and Jericho was also pretty cool, actually. I enjoyed that stuff. It didn't really lead to much. In the end, I don't think. What did it say in my notes
with
about
the recordings of the Doctor that they're listening to, it's like...
Oh, yes, we're looking at the recordings, yeah. I completely forgot about that. But yeah, they did do that. But, yeah, that was cool. But this episode was mostly kind of just that, with the quick little extra stuff with the Doctor talking to Tecteun. So, obviously everyone who doesn't like Timeless Children didn't like this one either, because it kind of further solidified the fact that Timeless Child is a real thing in the canon. It wasn't just a fever dream, unfortunately. So There's the stuff with the fob watch that happens, and yeah. The stuff with Unit is good in this one, I will admit. There is some redeeming stuff in this one, but admittedly, much like Once Upon a Time, it's a lot of unfinished ideas that don't really gel together.
If it wasn't for Unit, this would have been my least favourite in all of season 13.
Yeah.
Vanquishers.
So the Vanquishers. Yeah. Worst Jodie episode, I think. There might be something in Series 11 I hate more, but Vanquishers, for the purpose of this video, is my least favourite. It had so much stuff to wrap up, and wrapped up zero of it. Yeah.
Doubling down on
rushed
previous
plot lines.
Ridiculous. A waste of an ending for Swarm and Azure.
Yeah, don't. That bit really pissed me off. Also, the fact... Oh my god, actually, the most insult to my intelligence is the fact that the Doctor somehow manages to absorb the entire flux into the passenger. How does that... Also, it wasn't alluded to. There was no foreshadowing to it. It just happens, and... Yeah...
And then, when you realise that you can do that to something which is meant to be a universally ending entity, and you can just put it away in a
box, in a fucking...
Yeah.
Yeah, that like, pisses me off to no end. It really does. And the fact is that they even tried to do like a shitty Doctor Who like Journey's End thing where you have two Jodie Whittakers. And even that, the fact that there are two versions of the Doctor walking around trying to resolve all of the plot lines, they still don't do it because there's way too many to resolve.
The bit where the Doctor's, at the edge, that kind of metaphorical edge, end of the line kind of moment with her previous incarnation.
Oh no, that was Power of the Doctor.
Oh, that was Power.
Oh, the Power of the Doctor.
Yeah.
The Vanquishers was just two Jodies trying to solve the same problem. It was like a clone thing, I think. I don't know. They didn't even explain that very well.
I binged these episodes at the same time. It's like I think it's probably because. No, I'll gloss that in a sec.
Yeah.
But it's. I think Vanquishers was just. It was just a waste of an opportunity. Terrible characters. Save from the Doctor and Swarm and Azure, there was really nothing worthwhile in that episode, and I can't believe I had to defend the 13th Doctor in this episode above all.
Yeah.
But even not even Yaz and I can't even remember much of what Yaz and Dan did in that episode because the overwhelming absurdity and disgusting treatment of lore that went on in that episode. It was a frustrating thing to have to sit through.
I'm gonna just read what I've written here because this seems way more succinct than anything I can think of. This was notes that I wrote after I'd watched The Vanquishers. So, having the Doctor split over all three plot lines does not help the episode one bit. Despite Kate Stewart coming back, it felt like she was sidelined a lot for it. Also, the Grand Serpent had no purpose in Flux beside retconning a few canonical errors in Unit's history. I hope that Swarm and Azure come back in the future, but they were extremely disregarded in the final moments of the story when their climax was most crucial. With the Doctor throwing away the fob watch after a whole 6-episode arc of her getting it, and searching for her memories back, to then just chuck it literal down the plug hole, it's kind of a slap to the face from Chris Chibnall to the fans that have committed to this timeless children bullshit for so long. Jesus, I was angry. It's like Chibnall has thought it's... Okay, it's like... My handwriting's terrible. It's like Chibnall has thought is... I didn't even spell that right. It's like Chibnall thought it's clever enough to write a whole new canon for the show, but he's not brave enough or clever enough to think about the conclusion of it. So he just left it for the unanswered questions of the fob watch for some other poor bastard to take over the show after him to answer for him. When Chris Chibnall writes a story, he has this awful habit of writing more stuff on top of it when really he should be thinking about a satisfying conclusion. Holy shit! The Vanquishers really pissed me off. There's so much so that I forgot how to spell. Yeah, Jesus Christ. I mean, I'm not wrong here in many of these points.
Russell, when you come back to this series, please just bring up the fob watch. Just leave it.
If you bring up the fob watch, use it to retcon Timeless Child or something.
Have someone just smash it. Have Donna smash it. We ain't using these again.
Yeah, I think that's all we have to say about the Vanquishers. It's a pile of poo.
Yeah.
Moving on. Eve of the Daleks.
My favourite Jodie episode.
It's one of my favourites too, actually.
It's the only episode I actually enjoyed sitting through.
Yeah. I fucking love the Daleks themselves in this. One thing that I did get from this episode, though, is we need to change out the bronze Daleks now. They have been used way too much. But the fact they've got a cool turret on makes it like, okay, they're not just using the base version, they're trying something new. But give us a new design, please, God.
And a good choice of inspiration for an episode like Groundhog Day, because that's a really good film in itself anyway. The original is a lovely film.
Amazing concept for a Doctor Who episode. And the fact that, like... Okay, actually, I worded it perfectly here. This is the perfect way to be the Doctor and to write the Doctor. After the Doctor's first death and respawn, the first thing she thinks is, I need to go save that guy that I couldn't save last time. That's the first thing that she thought of. That is such a Doctor thing to do. Yeah. That is how you write and act as the Doctor, is to just think, okay, shit, I'm not going to think about the fact that I just died, because that's happened to me before. Right. That guy that died last time, I'm going to try and save him this time. Yeah. That's such a Doctor thing to do.
And it's the first time you feel familiar with her morals.
Yes. And the thing is that it's just lightning in a bottle. It's just moments like that is what makes the Doctor. And I'm like, it was when I watched that first time live where I thought, holy shit, it's just because of that line of dialogue I can now see Jodie as a version of the Doctor. Yeah. Before that point, there had not been one moment that had clicked in my brain as much as that one did. And I'm like, holy shit. There you go. You nailed it. Whether that was Chibnall or a line that she invented on her own, well done whoever's responsible for that, because that is such a Doctor thing to do. It's such a small little moment, but I picked up on it because I'm like, something clicked in my head like, holy shit, that's the Doctor that just ran off there. Do you know what I mean? It's such a subconscious thing, but I had to just put that in because I wrote it in here and I couldn't say less than I did here. But
I like the way that they cut out the TARDIS for being used in this episode, because of course you have to think of a way to keep a device like the TARDIS from not being able to access time travel. Yeah. And so I like the way that they kind of cut this out as a problem. Not really kind of clear if the Daleks were aware that time was always being reset.
Or... No, they were utilising it. It was their time trap.
Okay.
It was their time trap. And it was, they saw the trap. It was created by the Flux kind of fucking with the TARDIS, but the TARDIS you couldn't open. So they were like, okay, we'll use this. We'll trap the Doctor in this weird time loop thing going on. And it worked out really well for that. The setting itself, it's cool. It's bleak. It's creepy looking. A bit bland, dare I say? It's a bit uninspired.
It kind of reminds me of like a watered down version of the God Complex.
Yeah.
That hotel.
Yeah, they see where that one is good. Is like a weird purgatory thing like this. That one is like more appeasing to look at than this setting. And it's just what I more meant.
It was juxtaposing as well, because despite what it was actually used for in the God Complex, what that building was used for, that flattering and homely feel that you get in one of those 5-star hotels, that made it more jarring and a bit more
because being like we're in
uncomfortable.
This purgatory that we can't really escape. It's cool because they did it, but they also do the same thing here. They reference the Flux here. I thought that after the Vanquishers happened, they would just gloss over everything that happened in the Flux, because it was basically the fact that the Doctor resolves the whole Flux thing with the passenger just feels like a serious retcon, like a lazy bit of writing yourself out of a corner that Chibnall does a lot. I'm really going in on Chibnall in this video, aren't I? This will be the last one, hopefully, because this is the last Jodie review for a little while, I hope. The Daleks are really menacing. The fact that there's like a 0 body count in this episode when you think about it, and yet the Daleks are menacing, well done. Whoever was responsible for that, well done for making that happen. And as well as that, when I watched it originally, I did feel I would have been happy if the episode was 20 minutes longer and we saw 20 more minutes of the characters respawning and working out their problems and then being like, right, how do we actually escape this time? I would have liked it if they had 20 more minutes of that, because it would have been like, what else can we explore in this building that we could use to our advantage? Oh, that didn't work, let's try again. But maybe it was paced perfectly, maybe I'm just asking for more and not needing more. I don't know.
I think maybe just another 10 minutes, because if they use it well, if they time it right, and if they get it in just enough dialogue and explanation, but they're not having to go overboard with anything. Yeah. And I think maybe another 10 minutes might have been good.
I think it would have been... it's just more of like I had a really good time watching it, and I was like, I would have liked more. I would have been happy sitting down and watching a bit more of this. You know, when you're just having fun with something, and that's a good sign for a Doctor Who episode.
All in all, my favourite Jodie.
Yeah, I wrote a Chibnall thing here. I'll read this one out too. When Chibnall limits itself... I'm sorry.
Do you want me to
brain
read?
fart moment. When Chibnall limits himself to how many locations, props or characters he can use in one story, he utilises them very well, much better than an episode cluttered with 10 plus supporting characters and 15 plus supporting plots to juggle all at once. And with only one villain to juggle, 2 supporting roles and then the TARDIS team, he's cooking with gas because he only has those things to work with, and he manages to flesh them all out perfectly. And that's exactly the truth. That's why this episode works, because it's limited to one location, with one set of villains, with just the TARDIS team, and then the 2 supporting roles, and that's it. It's great. It's a winning formula. It's a base under siege, time, mystery, plot, whole thing. Great.
If I had to rate this episode, I'd give it a solid 8.5.
Really?
Yeah, it's
I'd
probably
give it a 9. I'd give it a 9 out of
it's
10.
the highest rating I'll ever give a Jodie episode.
Really?
Yeah, anything over 5 is a blessing.
Jesus.
Unlike this,
Fucking Legend of the Sea Devils. All right.
my least favourite episode.
The most disappointing episode of my fucking life. I love the episode The Sea Devils back in John Pertwee's era. It's one of my favourite John Pertwee stories of all time.
A beautiful character design
And
as well.
I was very, very excited to see them back, especially when I saw the press photos of the redesign of them. I'm like, that is a very, very faithful yet good revamp of the Sea Devils design, a far cry better from the Silurian redesign that we had in Matt Smith's era.
Yeah.
But the episode leaves a lot to be desired compared to their redesign. 1, because of the shoddy editing. 2, because of the lack of plot. 3, because the supporting roles are as thick as paper. And yeah, okay, well, we'll go for the positives first. I already said them. No, the Thasmin stuff, they squashed it in this episode. They gave it its time to breathe as a story. They had this sort of like will they won't they thing for this episode. They kind of started it last time. It's good to get this done before Power of the Doctor, because that would have given them way more to do in that episode. So ending the sort of Thasmin thing here is a much better idea than the one next to it. So well done for that, for not leaving everything to the last minute, Chibnall, which clearly do a lot. But let's go through. No, the setting, the idea of the that's why this is a disappointment, because the idea of a Sea Devil episode being set during the pirate era and there being pirate ships and them looting and looking for treasure, that is such a cool Sea Devil idea. And it's just such a shame that it was like wasted, because now we can never get one of these stories ever again now.
It felt weird that the Sea Devils had their own ship at one point.
Nah, that doesn't bother me.
I kind of like the
That
idea
didn't bother
that they would have stirred up some sort of legend around them. You know, like if they had done something with the water, then they kind of turned it into the story of, say, the Kraken.
Well, have you ever heard of the Merker? No, but that's a terrible thing. Anyway, I'm going to read off my notes here again.
I'm expecting something good here.
I loved that the Sea Devils returned finally, but they felt a tiny bit like an afterthought to the story. You could stand in any one of the new monsters in place of them and it wouldn't feel too different. Editing was very choppy, especially during some of the action. Don't like Dan killing those Sea Devils. Oh yeah, that's...
I didn't even bother to remember that.
No, they used the old Sea Devil death sound. Oh yeah, they used the old Sea Devil death sound! I was happy about that. Anyway, I'm just remembering this as I go. Costumes are good. Would have liked a tad more build up to the reveal of the first Sea Devil. The concept of the story is brilliant, but the execution went down very fast. The Thasmin baiting was... Jesus. Interesting. Like I said, at least they resolved it and ended that plot line here rather than the next one. Would have liked to learn more about the Madame Ching Pirate Queen. Yes. That's usually something that Chibnall's good at, with sort of like... with sort of like exploring a historical character.
Yeah.
So I would have liked that, but they didn't really do that. Sea Devils teleporting. Oh, fuck off with that. Sea Devils teleporting and jumping miles away onto a ship does take me out of the experience a bit for me. Oh yeah, and then the sea monster wasn't the Merker. That was my other complaint. Cool. What an interesting episode. Yeah, fuck the editing in this episode. It is a pile of crap, and yeah. No, enough said.
A waste of a classic Alien, especially one that's been out out of the spotlight for
Yeah,
ages.
I
and
was
this
so
is-
excited to see them back.
Yeah.
Especially when you call the episode Legend of the Sea Devils, and it's just fucking this. It's
not worth it.
no, it's not.
Especially
worth
off the back of such a brilliant episode. It's just... It's kind of like the car finally started getting a steady speed.
it. And then it stalled.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. And then we finally get to... what
Power of the
I-
Doctor.
I think, for me...
We'll brush over this fast because I've
Yeah.
already said my thoughts. But yeah, go
I
for
think
it.
for me personally, it was an okay episode. There were things that I liked, there were things that I didn't.
Really?
I've always enjoyed this iteration of the Master.
Yes.
I've liked this Master.
He's an amazing master, isn't he?
He kind
love
of
him to bits.
he's like a middle ground between
I will say, sorry, I love these not in flux because he would have detracted from Swarm.
definitely.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
That's the fun little thing I wanted to bring in there.
He's like a comfortable middle ground between Missy and Johnson's Master.
Yes, he is. He's childish, but he's also insane.
Yeah, and
Perfect
it's
mixture.
not to say that any of these three masters are better or worse than each other. They just branched off different aspects of what this character could have been. They didn't step on each other's toes.
No.
They were unique. They were different.
He is amazing.
Yeah.
Sacha Dhawan, he's not my favourite master, but maybe in a few years I can see him becoming my favourite. Maybe my second. Actually, maybe not. I don't think anyone will beat Roger Delgado, but Sacha Dhawan is really good, man. He's really good, and I hope this isn't the last we see of him, but I have this horrible feeling that it is. But my God, he did amazingly. He smashed it. Also, the return of Ace was cool. I've already said my piece on like where I think about that and Tegan's reintroduction. The idea of there being like this circle group therapy session thing with the companions that now exists after the fact. Cool concept. The Guardians of the Edge thing where it's like, oh, there's an afterlife for the Doctor's incarnations. No.
No, I
Fuck
wish
off.
it
I've already said how I don't like
It was
that.
such a shame to see them brought back on such a farcical idea.
I mean,
And-
if there was ever a reason to bring them back, they'd be able to find a better reason to. But at least we saw them again, all the actors.
Then there was also that
So-
meta moment with the Eighth Doctor not in the robes, and there's always one.
No, I enjoy that though. I enjoy that because it's
I-
kind of like baiting like the showrunners to like be like, can we please get a fucking Eighth Doctor spin-off now? It's been so fucking long, and he's starting to look old. Hurry up before he grows grey hairs.
Yeah.
So
Rasputin Master, I kind of liked. I thought it was a funny gimmick.
Is there?
His plan to put himself in the Doctor a little.
Not a fan.
I
Also, the force regeneration logic is not working here. It's been used before, and it doesn't work.
and that last fight scene. Oh my god.
The fact that the Doctor just gets killed off by some random blast of
ball.
energy is just some space ball. It's just such a dumb way to kill her off. It could have been done better than that.
You've had poisoned by radiation, stuck in the time vortex, exhausted all regenerations, and then given one extra blast from the Time Lord. You've had trying to absorb more radiation, or making you forget all that kind of stuff. Taking a blast from Cybermen constantly over and over again, and then suddenly Spaceball.
Yeah, it's just there's a better way you could have done that, Chibnall. I won't lie.
Although to be fair,
Yeah.
it was fitting, given that such an underwhelming Doctor got such an underwhelming send-off.
I know. And it is a shame because I think that Jodie under RTD's writing would have actually been amazing.
She could
I
have
think
been
she would have
so
been.
much better.
And I've even said this in the past how I know that at the beginning of these Jodie reviews years back, I was a different person back then. I said how Jodie's the worst Doctor. I don't think there's a bad actor / actress to play the role. I really don't. I think they've always managed to bring something new to the role, and even Jodie has. And I am really sad to see her go, just like every single other Doctor that's come before that I've managed to see in real time. Which I didn't expect I'd ever experience with her, especially in Series 11, because Series 11 is still my least favourite run of episodes of Doctor Who. That's including the classic series, by the way. But it's the fact that, like, it's not... I feel like part of me missing her will be because of the missed potential of, like, a better set of writers with her Doctor would have been masterful, which is why I'm hopeful that we'll get some Big Finish audios of her, because the Big Finish writing team are usually always on it. They're usually always great, and I'm hoping that they'll manage to pull through and give Jodie a few good stories. But I also think that she was like a sort of free-spirited Doctor, and I did enjoy that, even more so than the Fifth Doctor. But she was also kind of like she was starstruck by the universe. Like, the best way... This seems like cringy to say this, but I saw something on Tumblr, of all places. That's the place where all Doctor Who memes and theories go to die. But they actually managed to sum up Jodie's Doctor in the perfect phrase. She's the fangirl of the universe. She loves to nerd out about all this cool thing that she's brought her companions to see. She over-explains, sure, but she's overexcited. She loves showing people new shit, and she's just in awe at like all the cool stuff. She's a child, you know, in an old person's body, you know. And
well, actually,
it's a nice way to think of her, you know. I think, but
similar to, I mean, I saw someone else kind of sum it up as well, and not necessarily in the fangirl description, but in the sense of a child. What one person I saw kind of described it as they kind of felt like it had. The reason why they felt like Jodie had reverted on morals, didn't really know an awful lot, always got confused, was new to everything. They described it how because Capaldi was meant to be that last iteration, you know, he was ready to die, he was ready to give it all up. Suddenly he has that change of heart. It's like a rebirth.
Yeah.
And in a similar... He kind of used the metaphor of a phoenix, you know, reborn from the ashes. You know, the 12th Doctor, he had that giving up phase. I don't want to change. I've had enough. Let this be over. And then suddenly that last little kickstart before the new body comes in, and it's like this new Doctor was a restart in not necessarily the Doctor as a person, but the Doctor as this Doctor, this new character comes in, and they're not just new as a new form, but new as a new person. They don't quite understand where things are going. They're not yet used to themselves. They're growing again, restarting with what kind of things they would expect of themselves.
Yeah.
Which
it's like she's coming out of a depression as a character.
Yeah.
Like she's relearning what it means to be happy.
And
it's sweet in a weird way.
I think in that sense, I got a little bit more respect for the 13th Doctor.
The writing still doesn't hold up, even if you look at it in that context. But like I say, the whole fangirly side of the Doctor is here with her, and also the fact that like she's kind of I say relearning what it means to just. But then
it's like even
it's a
if
nice
you can,
take on it.
Even if you can respect her as a fangirl or as a rebirth, it just wasn't what the Doctor should have been. I mean, yes, it's good to know that, you know, after such a depressing moment where the Doctor thought he could give it all up, and then have that restart in, you know, that enthusiasm to the world. It's like.
It's a nice breath of fresh air.
Chibnall could have done so much more with not just the restart of the Doctor's excitement of the universe, but with that excitement of being the first female Doctor. There was so much potential that they could have had from the get-go, and all Chibnall was invested in was fan fiction and writing his own sob stories, unplanned, unthought through, unpolished, not faithful. Just it wasn't even Doctor Who; it was Chibnall's world.
Yeah,
and it killed what could have been
a great Doctor's
a historically beautiful moment for Doctor Who, and it killed it off.
For me, in terms of like her Chibnall's whole era, and I think this is kind of obvious, but Chibnall probably went into this thinking, right, I'm gonna cast the first female Doctor. Why? Because it hasn't been done yet. He hasn't got a reason to. There are so many like opportunities for stories out there that can utilise the fact that the Doctor is a woman in the plot, whether that be like a series long arc or just a one-off story. That never happens. It just gets ignored the whole time, and I don't think it should be ignored. I know it's like, too taboo. Straight white guy wants to write the first female Doctor. Maybe he was too scared to do anything else with it besides just cast a woman for the first time. I don't know. I don't know Chibnall as a person. I just know that he maybe stumbled over his feet while he was at the first hurdle and he never really recovered.
I mean, the closest he got to that, I mean, he was always pushing agendas in the first series. And I feel like the worst kind of sense of obvious...
And the thing is, though, as well, sorry, I will let you finish, but the whole pushing agendas thing, that's not the problem. Like, saying pollution is bad or racism is bad, that's correct, Chibnall. But the thing is, when you introduce problems like that into your episode, you've got to kind of have a resolve there at the end to kind of maybe not find a resolution for it, because sometimes there isn't a straight answer to a problem like that, but kind of have a resolve at the end for the characters so that it's a satisfying conclusion, rather than just going around saying, don't dump in the ocean, don't be racist, don't be a bigot, Don't be. Yeah,
It's like
it's but you can't just say don't be this stuff. You have to in the story, like present a solution that people can take from it into the real world.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just kind of irresponsibly, like chucking around all of these really controversial, very sensitive topics, and you're kind of just throwing them around willy-nilly in your story to kind of get some social points or something. It's just it's half-baked.
Like trying to say the message without saying the message. It's like if we use one example of trying to get a message across, we hop back 40 years, Genesis of the Daleks, where they didn't have to shoot that message of purity or inclusivity, diversity, discrimination, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But they had a pivotal historical influence, quite recent in their time, to utilise and reflect the Daleks' history through. And it gave that message without needing to... It didn't need to obviously say what the episode was.
No, because everyone was thinking it. Yeah. We were thinking it, watching it. And it's exactly that.
It didn't need to do anything more than just visualise it.
Yeah, you didn't need Tom Baker to suddenly turn to the camera and be like, pollution is bad. You didn't need to.
No.
Fascism is bad. Tom Baker doesn't need to spell that out to you. And it's not a PSA. No. It's entertainment.
Yeah. The best kind of influence you have is when you watch the problem cause its own downfall. Because Davros himself, he's the figurehead of what those ideologies were for, and then to watch his own world crumble in front of him, I mean, it's quite realistic compared to the history it was based off. But it sold its own message. What does working for these kind of agendas get you? Nothing. Because this world is not embracing those kind of things. It's going to be fighting back, and it's going to win. Whereas if you do this kind of stuff now where female empowerment and, the white man is trash, obviously it's going down like a cup of bad sick because it's a cup of bad sick idea. Well, I mean, obviously female empowerment's not a bad idea. It's a bloody brilliant idea.
Oh, God, yeah.
But
when you present those ideas without a solution, that's when you kind of stumble, because you're literally just presenting these problems with no solution in story. And like I say, it's fine to say this and that is bad, but you've got to
back it up.
You've got to back it up with what to replace it with. Yeah.
It's like Spyfall Part 2 with the Doctor jumping between female influences. I've said this before in another one, but that was so on the nose because it didn't show any resolution. She didn't kind of point to why it was a problem or why you could, or at least encourage them to carry on. It just outright said, you were famous because a guy shot on your ideas. But then we get to watch you do it properly. You beat their ass, girl. That's all she ever did in those episodes, and then she hops on to the next one, and it's just, all in all, Flux for me was just, you get through it because you get through it.
Yeah, it's a stepping stone at this point, especially with the ending it had. But what do you rate each episode? For me, Revolution of the Daleks, we already said I get a 5, you gave it a 5. Halloween Apocalypse, I'll
give that one a 6.
I'm giving it a 7. War of the Sontaran gets a 10 for me.
5 again.
5 for War of the Sontarans?
The Sontarans for me were literally the only saving grace for that episode.
Right, okay. Once Upon Time, I'm going to give a 6 just because of Joe Martin being there.
4.
Then Village of the Angels gets another 10.
6.5.
Jesus, alright. Then Survivors of the Flock gets a 3 out of 10 because of the
3.
unit. And then Vanquishers gets a 1. It's a poo episode, I don't like it.
1.
Yeah. Then Eve of the Daleks gets a 9.
8.
Then Legend of the Sea Devil gets a 4. And then Power of the Doctor, I think I already said I gave it a 7 or a 6 in my previous review. I don't know. But with all of the canon morphing stuff they've done in Jodie's era, I mean, I even wrote a thing in here about the canon. I'm going to read this out. Okay. With the baggage that Doctor Who has over its 50 plus years, it's safer to leave the canon alone when it comes to show running it nowadays. But I applaud Chibnall for being bold and trying something new, even though the Timeless Child stuff is misguided and undermines the unimportantness of the Doctor as a character. That doesn't mean that it can't be fixed down the line with a new showrunner. Bold enough to make the change back to how it was or to something different that's better. And what I said about Flux is, since the series had so much to tackle, being Division, Swarm Azure, Passenger, Timeless Child, Williamson, Sontarans, Weeping Angels, the dog alien people, that's what I called them on this, introducing Dan, the Flux, the Multiverse, Bell, and Vinda, etc. I'm glad that the other shit like the Daleks and Cybermen were just window dressing to the rest of it. Yeah. So for all that Flux is with all that stuff I mentioned, at least it was balanced throughout 6 episodes. It's just that some of it was a bit backloaded towards the Vanquishers, which is why it kind of tipped this way and went downhill the further into the series we got. Yeah. So like Halloween Apocalypse, War of Sontarans, then Village of the Angels, then Survivors of the Flux, down there it goes.
And then Legend of the Sea Devils was just a plug.
Deep down there. Really far down, but we're done. We're done. We're done.
Wow.
We're done with Jodie's era. We've finished reviewing it. This is so freeing.
Blimey. Wow. Never thought we'd make it.
I didn't either. It's weird to see all that stuff behind us.
Yeah.
Because Jodie's era is the second longest era that a Doctor has been in canon as the Doctor goes, unless you count Paul McGann, but he was like off air the whole time.
Oh my god.
Because Paul McGann had the movie and then Eccleston, but then you also had John Hurt in between there.
That is
because
depressing.
in like canon of the show year to year, Tom Bake had 7, Jodie had 5. 5 fucking years of Jodie. Wow. I'm not here to dog on Jodie because I think she's a good Doctor. It's just the writing let her down, unfortunately.
From an acting perspective, Jodie is alright. I mean, I've told you before how I feel about Jodie's acting as more of a by the book, only does what the director says.
Yeah, that's what I was saying as well.
Did she utterly fail as a Doctor? No, she's not my worst Doctor.
No.
I've said that before.
I don't think there is a bad Doctor. I still don't think so. I used to think she was a bad Doctor, but I've realised that it's not her fault. No. She's done her best, and she is just an actor, like you say, that does it by the book, that just follows what the writer says and doesn't really question it or like put in her opinion of being like, oh, here's this really robotic line of explaining this weird sonic device. Hey Chibnall, what if I go more freeform with this? And Chibnall's like, no, probably, or something like that. You don't know what's happened behind the scenes there, so you've got to give Jodie the benefit of the doubt.
It felt like she was having in from a miserable experience at times because
I don't know. I feel like she seemed to have fun behind the scenes with the videos that were there. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters really. Is if they had fun together. Then you can't really ask for much more than that. So for all it's worth, I'm glad that this era exists and it is this microcosm that happened in the show, but now we can move on and people who enjoyed it more than us can go back to it and cherish the episodes that they hold dear. There are people that are diehard fans of Series 11. I'll never understand them, but I'm not going to take that away from them. If they like Series 11, all power to you. Don't know what you see in it. Like, Witchfinders is good, but besides that, I'm never really going to go back to it. Maybe Rosa, but also maybe not. It's just a lot of their stuff. So, but like I say, I'm not here to take that away from you. I'm just here to state my opinion that no one asked for. But yeah, that's it. We're done with Jodie Whittaker. I think that Series 13 is... I don't know if it's her best series. If you include Eve of the Daleks, maybe... But also Series 12 is better despite the Timeless Children existing. Just because Series 12 also had like Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, and then also the Cyberman stuff that was good in there, and then also Spyfall, which is excellent. So, yeah, I think Series 12 is the best year of Jodie overall, but Series 13 is okay. It's got the highest of highs of her era, and also the lowest of lows of her era. I think that's the best way to put it, in my opinion. Like you've got the Village of the Angels and the Eve of the Daleks and that sort of stuff up there, but then you also have the Vanquishers and Legend of the Sea Devils down there. So it's a big balancing act of Series 13. But yeah, we're done. Hope you enjoyed this review. I'm sorry that it took so long. If you watched all of it, well done. Don't know how you did. We barely did. But yeah, any final thoughts? Or no, are we about all Doctor Who'd out for one day?
All I can say is, Jodie, you're part of the canon now, so...
Thank you for existing, for what you've done. Thank you for all the work you've put in.
Yeah. And
you're a brave soul, and you're a kind soul.
And I hope that you are just as excited as we are to see the show at least carry on, because there were times where we felt like the show wouldn't.
Yes.
And thank you for keeping it coming as long as it has.
Yeah.
And sorry to say that I'm probably not going to miss this as much as other people might be. I'm looking forward to seeing how the show progresses in the future.
And I hope we see you again in like multi-Doctor stories in the future. And please give us some audio dramas from Big Finish. I really want to see your Doctor in extended media, in audio dramas, etc. You know what I mean. We're talking to her like she's going to watch this. Anyway, goodbye everyone.